Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the presentations. We're going to start with a great lineup of speakers this morning, and after lunch there will be a short 15-minute session for the prize draws. The prize draws include the grand prize of a $1,000 travel voucher and the exhibition booth prize draw. Be sure to be here for the prize draw, because only the people that are in the room will be eligible for the prizes. So I'd like to invite our first speaker to the stage, Allan Kinsella, Director Assurance, New Zealand Food Safety MPI. Please welcome Allan.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you today. I was talking to a couple of people at my table. They got in at 3:30. Brace yourselves, your first presentation is the government and talking about an IT program. Strap in. Okay, the future of certification program. What is it and why is it important? And I've probably made a slight mistake here and assumed a bit much knowledge. So I'm actually going to take a step back from the slide and explain export certification. So New Zealand's exports from the primary industries, the majority of them require what is called an official assurance to get access into overseas markets. So think China, EU and the like. So those official assurances are usually provided in the form of an export certificate. And why this is important? Well, we simply can't export a large amount of our primary industries produce without it. So pretty much all our meat, all our wine, the majority of our dairy exports, horticulture and forestry require an official assurance or an export certificate to get market access. So in 2022 terms, that's $33 billion a year. So I'm talking to you about what might be a boring IT project, but it's pretty important and vital to New Zealand's economic prosperity. So what are we doing and why? We had about 5 different IT systems built at different times, and they're on legacy or obsolete technology platforms, and it was time to replace them, basically. They were going to become more and more expensive to maintain, and ultimately we risked failure of those systems. Now, as you can imagine, Fonterra, the likes, we just can't have a failure. So we're rebuilding or building a new plane, to use an analogy, whilst we're flying another one. So there on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see we've actually already replaced some of our existing systems. The program has been in build and delivery for 2 years now. It actually started in 2019 with business casing, and by the end of, or rather the middle of 2026, we would have replaced certification systems for the big end of town. Phytosanitary certification, if you're not familiar with that, that's basically biosecurity. So when we export to another country, meeting their biosecurity requirements. And then APE cert, animal products exports, so think meat, dairy, honey and the like. So as I said, we've been going for a couple of years now in build. Wine is live in the system, free sale certificates are live in the system, organics to the UK are live in the system, and imports are now live in the system. This is the rest of the program we have to run. A little bit under a year to go, but a lot to do. And we're now dealing with the big end of town. You know, wine's important, a couple of $1 billion, but when you start shifting meat and dairy and so on in one transition, so that's going to be a very, very long weekend, you're talking about shifting, mid $20 billion worth of trade onto a new IT system, and we have to get it absolutely right. So what are we up to? We're building at the moment. We've started testing the system. We have business to government exchanges, so some companies, likes of Fonterra, to use an example, have their own SAP system and integrate with our systems. Some smaller companies use third-party software providers and again integrate with our systems. So we're already starting to test connectivity with those types of businesses. I'll talk a little bit more about the My MPI portal later, but basically we're looking to finish the build at the back end of this year. And then we transition in 2 steps, the phytosanitary industries at the end of February, and then the animal products sector at the end of April, and then have a couple of months closeout. So we've got a long runway, but there's a lot to do. And you'll see there we have a focus in the new year in 2026 very much on training. So we'll be hosting a range of webinars online to start training individuals in using the system. And that might not look like a lot of time, a couple of months to train folk, but our experience is if we do it too soon, everyone forgets and we're training them again. So that's why we do it so close to time. And final point is there will be plenty of opportunities for industry participants to use what will be a test system prior to actually going live with the production system. So we're building an entire, call it replica system for people to come and train in prior to going live. Okay, sticking with the theme of the concert, I wish it was a concert, conference. Certainly felt like that last night after a couple of superchargers. So we've got plenty of examples up there around AI and how we are using it, and it's become an incredibly important tool for us. We have a lot of, and it's probably just, I guess, I'll use one use case to describe how it's important. So we have what I describe as monolithic systems. They're systems that have been built over 10, 20 years, had bits clipped onto them, tinkered with, and they've had a range of people and experts come through and help develop them. So we've had a lot of knowledge loss over the years. So what we've been able to do with AI tools, like you use ChatGPT for example, is point into the current systems and begin asking questions about how they work, right down to a code-based level. And what that has enabled us to do is to distill a whole lot of knowledge that has sat historically in a few people. So we're beginning to broaden our knowledge base so that anyone can ask these questions and learn about how the system works. It's also enabled us to get our requirements, using IT speak, what we need to build for the system, really clear, and that has been efficient. So we've been able to strip it out using AI, analyse it, and it's saved us a hell of a lot of time. So what's coming up next? We've already started engaging with industry. For those of you in the audience that are ePhyto or APE cert users, you should have already started receiving emails. We're holding a number of webinars at the end of this month through to early next month. Last count, I think we had over 1,000 people registered to those 3 webinars. We can host 1,000 people to each one. We've already had to add one because of the demand, and there's plenty of scope for more people if they are interested. I already mentioned the early business to government testing. It's really important for industry to be able to access our systems and upload data, so we've started that in earnest now. And finally, My MPI registration. So MPI has now developed one front door for its digital services. So as new applications are built, like the Future of Certification system, those applications sit behind a portal. So it's really important that people that want to access the system through what's called the digital front end, register. And the reason it's important is because all the roles and permissions that they currently have in the system will be migrated when we do data migration. So we're migrating over 100 million records from APE Cert over a weekend, and all the roles and permissions that people have in the system will also be migrated. If they don't, then they have to re-register. So if you are interested in learning more, if you're perhaps being left off a mailing list or whatever, the email address to contact is up there, and I'm not sure if slide packs are being distributed afterwards, but also you're more than welcome just to come and have a chat with me. I'm here until lunch, and there's no wrong door into government. We're here to help. Yeah, it's really looking forward to the rest of the program, hopefully being delivered successfully for our primary industries, and thank you so much for your attention. Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just wanted to point out to everybody here that the format of today's sessions is going to be a bit different from yesterday. There won't be a panel that we ask questions at the end, but Slido is available. So if you ask some questions through Slido, we'll put them to the speakers at the end of the session if we have time. So if anybody has any questions for Allan, please put them forward now. In the meantime, Allan, a quick question that came to mind, and forgive me if you covered it, but what support is going to be wrapped around us pre-go live and post-go live?
Yeah. Is this one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I covered that very lightly. So I guess from our perspective, the support has already started. We've had a range of webinars with sectors, so meat, dairy, honey, this group, freight forwarders. We're having one with the halal certifiers shortly. We've had one with the plant sector. So that's really to bring them up to speed on the plan. And as the plan develops, we'll be having more and more webinars to bring people along in the journey of what's happening and when, and give them an opportunity to input, ask questions and learn. We will have training webinars at different times in early next year. So, you know, if a business operates random hours or whatever, we'll hopefully be able to accommodate different businesses. As we go live, we will have a range of support mechanisms in place, help desk basically, and early life support for people that are having issues with the system. We provide user guides, so you remember the old dummies for Windows for Dummies type books? They are like that. They're page by page screenshots of how to use the system. So we'll be issuing those and updating those as we get feedback as we go along. For the wine industry, for example, we surged an additional 30 people into the program. We needed to do some manual workarounds to make sure that we could support the wine industry during the transition. So when you think about this program, it's probably, I didn't give you the context, there's probably over 100 people working on this program at the moment. It's not a small thing. So there's a lot of resource going into it, a lot of effort, and business change management and supporting industry and our own users and so on is certainly at the forefront of our minds.
Thank you, Allan. We've got another question up there. Please confirm expected end date for meat and seafood.
Yeah, so for all animal products, we're aiming for the end of February 2026. That's when we're aiming for the transition. So anything that's using APE cert at the moment, that's the transition date.
Thank you, Allan. Yeah, please show your appreciation.
My phone, yes.
That's mine, yeah. Next up, we have got Sirma, Karapeeva, Chief Executive Officer, Meat Industry Association. Please welcome Sirma to the stage.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I think my presentation is a little bit different to what you might have heard yesterday, and also, Allan's presentation in terms of the use of AI, but hopefully it does add some value to your knowledge and to your business. I'm going to talk about something that is very important to the industry, and it is trade. We are very much a trade-exposed industry. We export over 95% of what is produced domestically to the global market, and that's simply a matter of the fact that we're efficient producers, but we've got a very small domestic market. But firstly, let me introduce myself. As said, my name is Sirma Karapeeva. I'm the Chief Executive of the Meat Industry Association. And for those of you who do not know who the Meat Industry Association is, we're a voluntary trade association that represents meat processors, exporters and marketers. Our membership essentially covers approximately 98% of domestic production and export. We have 75 members, and they operate some 60 plants throughout the country, up and down New Zealand. We also have a number of affiliate members that provide services adjacent to our industry, such as shipping, R&D, insurance, and I'm sure cold storage as well. So in the Cold Facts magazine, there is an article which talks about the May trade data, and it paints a pretty good picture of where we're at with our exports and how well we're doing, given the challenges. But today, I just want to step you through some of the real challenges that we are facing in the industry, and we have to navigate virtually on a daily basis. And we're facing some huge upheaval in our top three markets, the US, China, and the EU. And I don't mean to be alarmist, but all those three markets are in distress. And you will see what I mean as I step through my presentation. But before we dive into it, I do want to set the scene with some positivity. So, here we go. The supply and demand fundamentals for red meat remain really strong. Global demand for what we produce is strong, and we expect this to continue. The FAO Agricultural Outlook is predicting that meat consumption across the board will grow, and in fact the FAO Meat Price Index has reached an all-time high, driven mainly by the high prices of beef and lamb globally. The global agri-trends data also shows that supply will be short over the short term, and partly due to rebuilding of herds and the likes of Australia, the US and Brazil. So this is probably the first time in about 20 years that the global cattle cycle will be in sync between the major exporters. So we are going to see short supply, high demand, which is great for exporters like New Zealand. So all things being equal, we are in a pretty good place. But we are challenged by a volatile and complex world. The geopolitical situation, as you all well know, is very volatile. There are more crises and challenging how the governments respond, where attention and resources are being placed. This affects how goods and people are moving, the logistic challenge, the product challenge placements, and the cost of getting our product into market. The international trade is also increasingly more complex. We as a country are very used to an open trade system where we rely on the global trade rules and things go well. Unfortunately, those trade rules are not as robust as they used to be several years ago. Trade has always been complicated, but today we are facing many more non-tariff barriers, protectionism, high tariffs, and it all feels very, very different to what we were used to in the past. This is also affected by the geopolitical issues, so now we're seeing the intertwine between security and other geopolitical issues with trade, which for a trade-exposed nation is actually quite uncomfortable. The unpredictability and the uncertainty has a chilling effect on investment, expanding into markets, and also consumer demand to a certain extent. The domestic and global economic outlook also creates some challenges. We know that China is recovering, but it has been going very slowly, and that is because their consumers there are more cautious and mindful of what they spend and how they choose to use their money. And protectionism is not good for New Zealand. That is one thing that I will like you to take that away with you. So just to put all that in context, this is what's at stake. For the 12 months to June 2025, we exported $11 billion worth of red meat and co-products to the globe. The MPI SOPI Situation Outlook for Primary Industries report predicted that for meat and wool, that figure would be $12 billion. So we're not far off, and it doesn't include wool. The total exports have increased by 10% over the previous year. The major markets continue to be the US, China, the UK and Canada now are coming up. Sheep meat volumes are down, but value is up by 15%. Likewise, beef volumes are also down, but value is up by 9%. So the important thing to note here is that despite the volumes coming down, the value of our exports is up, which is keeping this economy going and keeping our industry humming to the best of its ability. Now, turning to our top three markets for a more detailed look. The United States. Well, the United States was the top market in the year for June 2025, driven by beef exports, and the exports were worth $3.15 billion. Partly this is because demand is high. Our lean trim is mixed with their more fatty grain-finished product and made into those beautiful hamburgers that Americans love to eat. They are currently in a herd rebuilding phase, so they're really looking for imports to supplement their domestic supply, and that puts us in a fairly good position. The prices are expected to continue to be high until at least 2029, when more supply comes on board. Unfortunately, we now face an additional 15% tariff into that very lucrative market. So originally, the base tariff was 10% when President Trump announced it. 10% was not great, but through commercial negotiations and smart play by our companies, we were able to either absorb it or offset it or pass it on. 15% is quite a different proposition, and it does mean that companies are starting to look and make commercial decisions about where to place their product. It is also unfortunate because it places us at a competitive disadvantage with some of our competitors. Australia is currently sitting on 10%, so the 5% differential is significant for us. Brazil, on the other hand, is up to 60% tariffs. So you might think that that's great because Brazil is a volume producer and pumps a lot of product into markets. On the face of it, that might look good, but that product has to go somewhere. And what we are expecting to see is that Brazil will shift some of that product from the United States into other markets, and that will have a knock-on effect not only on our ability to trade into those markets, but also on the prices that those markets are willing to pay for product like New Zealand's red meat. And we are seeing that play out in China already. So turning on to China. China is our second largest export market. It's down 12% in the year June 2025, but it's still worth $2.5 billion of export revenue. The economic slowdown, the low consumer confidence, has actually meant fewer trips to restaurants and discretionary spending. But we're starting to see a recovery. We're starting to see prices pick up, and consumers return to looking for a product which is more of a premium, at the premium end, product which is good for them and good for their family, and as grass-finished or grass-fed product from New Zealand, we think that we've got a super value that we can offer the Chinese consumers in their quest for better lifestyles. The increase in imports of beef, however, into the China market has been significant. It is now a very competitive market. A couple of years ago, there was just a handful of exporters. Now I think there are something like 48 countries that export beef into China, with Brazil and Argentina being the top two. And this has led the Chinese government to really look at the impact of imports on their domestic industry. So earlier this year, they launched an investigation on the importation of beef. The investigation is not really aimed at New Zealand, but however, because we are an importer, an exporter into that market, we are caught in the mix. And so we have to now participate in this investigation and await the Chinese government's decision on what they are going to do to curtail or to manage the huge volume of imports coming into their country. So there's some talk that one option might be that they introduce global safeguards in the form of tariff rate quotas, which is not great, because under our free trade agreement with China we have pretty much open access with no tariffs and no limitations. If we were to be caught by this global safeguard, and if it is to apply to all importers, my sense is that the large exporters like Brazil and Argentina will swoop in, fill the quota very quickly, and essentially squeeze us out or force us to pay a much higher tariff into the Chinese market. So that's not a very exciting proposition, and we're working very closely with the New Zealand government to make our case as to why we're not the problem in the China market, and they need to acknowledge and respect the free trade agreement that we have in place and the provisions of that agreement as well. So then, the final market is the EU. So we've talked a little bit about the US with tariffs and China with tariff rate quotas, and you might think that trade is all about tariffs. However, it isn't. It is also about these pesky things called non-tariff barriers. These are regulatory requirements that sit behind the tariff wall. They come in and impact on certification, labelling, traceability, all sorts of other requirements that are often very difficult to quantify and extremely difficult to dismantle. A tariff you can pretty much negotiate if the other party is willing to negotiate it away, but non-tariff barriers are very, very problematic. Just to give you a sense of the cost impost of non-tariff barriers, we recently released a report which suggests that the non-tariff barriers facing our industry cost us $1.5 billion every year. So that's a significant amount for an $11 billion export industry. The EU is a sector's third largest market, bringing in just over $1.3 billion worth of revenue. It's a major market for sheep. It is lower levels for beef, but it tends to be the high end of beef, the high value beef that goes into the EU. Logistics have been quite challenging because of the Red Sea disruptions, and that has added a significant number of days to shipments, which of course adds onto the cost, and also has implications for the shelf life of product that goes into the EU. The big problem that we're facing in the EU is that they introduced EU deforestation rules. Again, this is not aimed at New Zealand. We don't have a deforestation problem, as many of you know. We have an afforestation problem, which is impacting the industry in a different way. But they have introduced this as a blanket requirement to try and manage product that comes in from countries where there is deforestation. And that essentially will impact about $200 million worth of exports for our beef, particularly beef and beef offal and hides, into the EU. It's supposed to be enforced by the 30th of December. However, it has been very challenging to get quality information from the Europeans about how this is going to be enforced, what will be acceptable, what sort of documentation is necessary. We, of course, are not sitting and waiting until this comes into play. The last 12 months, we have concerted a significant effort in preparing geospatial data to map our land and traceability systems to be able to show that the product that we're exporting to the EU comes from particular areas which are not subject to any form of deforestation. It is difficult and it is costly, but it is part of the, part of the package of doing business in a global environment. You cannot ignore these requirements. You just simply have to find a workaround or have to find a way to comply with it. So, as I said, top 3 markets, most of our product goes in there. All have huge issues that, as an association, we have been working very hard to try and support our members to navigate the challenges, working with government and working with our counterpart organisations in other countries. But it's, it is something that will continue as my pick. We will see more of these protectionist barriers popping up throughout the world for all sorts of reasons, be it geopolitics, be it because of a personal slant on how trade should work, whatever the case. But it is not getting easier, which is quite disconcerting for an industry which produces an excellent product that many customers and consumers around the globe want to enjoy and are willing to pay reasonable prices for. So, in conclusion, I think I've given you a pretty sobering assessment of the headwinds that are facing the industry, but I do want to finish going back to the positive note. We export to over 120 markets around the world, and companies have shown time and time again the ability to be agile, innovative and creative when challenges present themselves, and they have been able to redirect product even mid-shipment to other ports in order to grab whatever export revenue they can to bring it back to the New Zealand economy. And we have a robust strategy of diversification and optionality. So I'm confident that we will be able to weather the storm. And in fact, the July trade data, which is about to come out next week, shows exactly that despite the fall in volumes, our value of our product continues to rise. So there are glimmers of hope on the horizon, and we will continue to row the boat towards those sunnier shores as best as we can. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Sirma.
Thank you.
We don't have any time for questions for Sirma, so if you would like to ask Sirma some questions, hopefully she's around at morning tea. Our next speaker, Robert Gibbes, CEO of Active Refrigeration. Please give a warm welcome to Robert.
Good morning, everyone, and I hope you're enjoying the conference. Yesterday in particular, I think it was particularly inspiring hearing the opportunities to advance the industry, and I think it does reflect a pretty common commitment, a sincere passion and desire to help the cold storage industry to face the challenges, the sort of things that you've just heard about, and continue to thrive into the future, representing New Zealand on a globally competitive stage. My presentation really is just taking a bit of an angle on going from the kind of practical realities of where we are today and looking into that future, how we can enable our businesses to take advantage, of that incredible digital future. And it's about sort of going from the physical today into the digital of tomorrow. So that's really what I'm trying to do here. Did that work? No. There it is. What I'm going to try and do over the next few minutes is just convince you that refrigeration isn't just that, that silent workhorse that's humming away in the back shed that you've never been into, but in fact, one of the biggest opportunities that you can add value into your business and try as wherever you are in that cycle, whether it's repair, refurb, replace, or a new investment. Fridge offers you a range of decisions you can make that will start to bridge between those physical challenges today and that digital future of tomorrow. And really the key is about working with some pretty sound engineering moves right now, some decisions that you can make wherever you are in that cycle, as I said, working with the right teams and some pretty clever design commitments to enable you to build those bridges. So I'm going to just try and work on the top 5 ways that we see that you can build long-term profit as a result of refrigeration. First thing really is you've got to nail the basics. We heard a lot about that yesterday. I'm not going to go into these in too much detail. You know this stuff. But the key point here is that if you really want to optimise your operating parameters, you need to be able to stabilise them, have control of them and make them as predictable as possible. Next key thing really is what we probably want to talk to you most about is just choosing smarter systems and refrigerants. The thing is that if you really want to take advantage of the awesome computing power that AI is going to enable, then you have to have a plant that's going to be able to respond and deliver it. And there are a range of variables that you can consider at the design stage, wherever you are in the cycle. Things to do with the plant, the kind of capacity, the kind of controls that you're going to need, the types of refrigerants and the energy use and all of those types of things that will have an impact on your investment cycle right throughout. So whether it be the initial capital outlays or the lifetime of operating expenses, things like energy, your maintenance, refrigerant use, all those kinds of things, through to being able to have the adaptability for different changing customer product demands, different heat loads, all of those kinds of things can be made pretty carefully at a design stage. This is just a recent example that it's just a small chiller that got added onto a plant, but they stole this off the customer actually. Efficiency is going to matter a whole lot more as the energy costs rise. They just come off a different tariff arrangement, and they ended up saving something like $500,000 a year. If you want more detail on that, you can talk to the guys who put it in. I guess the thing that we were really trying to do here with this piece of the puzzle is to say that if you really want to take advantage of everything that is available to you from a profit point of view, you need to have the plant that's actually going to be able to respond. What capacity decisions that you're making, what kind of controls that you're going to have in, VSDs, you heard a little bit yesterday about the electronic expansion valves and the things that they can do. What are you going to measure? What refrigerants are you going to use? We obviously, promoting heavily the natural refrigerants because, helps our sustainability chain, and we believe there's much better energy efficiency. But all of these decisions are available to you to be able to figure out, well, if I really want to figure out, get to this optimal point for my conditions and my plant demands, then what are the kinds of things that I need to choose when I'm thinking about putting a plant in. And controlled atmospheres, a little bit, my next speaker will talk a bit more about this, but we see a massive opportunity definitely in there, and you can link all of this up to your fridge plant investment. A kind of third key unlock for us is moving from, letting things break and, trying to fix them before they get beyond repair. I think the real story here is the bridge in this unlock is about the deepening of knowledge about how your plant responds in your unique and particular conditions under your unique operating parameters and your particular customers' demands. So it's about getting that deeper learning, which ultimately will be able to feed in then to the intelligent models and start to really exploit the awesome computing power available. And a bit about how this works. If you get, I'm not going to go through this in detail, right? But if you get the right partners who care about and commit to what you're trying to achieve, you can tailor service plans that will work for your unique conditions, that will get you down the cost curve, and get you up the performance curve. And so you can sleep easy at night knowing that you got your investment is sound and your business is taking advantage of everything. I guess the fourth one for us is leaning into now the AI world. You heard a lot about that yesterday, and in particular, the data optimization that AI affords once you start to learn. And I guess that once you've got your plant, your choices available, you've got a team in there that are absolutely tuning it, understanding what those anomalies are, how they respond to the different operating parameters, then you can start to leverage AI to get better and better decisions more frequently and start to take advantage of that computer power to make decisions, to optimize your energy costs, to start to think about when should you replace what and for what reasons, and what's the best way about going about that. And I guess the other thing here is that you start to feed the data into the algorithms that you can then use and get to know what AI is actually going to do. We think we're on the way here. We do think it's the early days, really, quite frankly, and there's a lot of enablers in addition to having the plant that will give you that flexibility. But there's a lot of enablers such as the sensors and the connectivity and the right platforms. And really this is about that learning cycle. It's about being able to take progressive steps, get the feedback, build the predictability and confidence. Because in the end you're going to really want to have the guardrails in place to protect what is a mission critical set of assets. And so it is about spending wisely, building progressively and consistently, and being able to get to that feedback cycle. And our fifth unlock here really is just moving beyond just straight cooling and starting to think about turning refrigeration into an energy asset. Here's three things we've been working on in the last little while. You heard a little bit about this yesterday, but the ability to use thermal mass a bit like a battery, and if you've got the plant that will allow you the flexibility that will respond well for ons and offs and all those kinds of things, you can start to shift your load demands to where it's cheaper power. You can also, we're working with a client at the moment, they've got a vast solar array that has been integrated back into the plant and is smartly adjusting how much power it's actually drawing along the way. So there's another opportunity, and you'll hear a little bit more about reduced oxygen with the next speaker, but we think this is a massive opportunity for cold storage, not only controlling things like shelf life, but just density that you're able to stack things to in your cool stores, eliminating all that fire infrastructure, and well, there won't be a fire, so you don't need to worry about fire damage. So those are our sort of top five. I'm about 20 seconds, so I'm doing okay, I think, here, boss. Those are our top five unlocks, but I guess the thing that we're thinking about is working together. We think that these are the levers to pull to translate from like the physical reality of where you are today with that plant into being able to take advantage of an incredible digital future. And we think with the right foundations and with the right team, you can start to turn refrigeration into a real energy asset. And really, wherever you are in the investment cycle, we believe it's definitely one of the best decisions you can make, opportunities to make more money and have a resilient and profitable cold storage industry. Thank you. Yep. Yeah, that's good. Cheers.
Thank you, Robert, for that very informative speech on refrigerants and refrigeration systems. Next up, we've got Oliver Morfeld, Managing Director of Wagner Fire Safety. Please give a welcome to Oliver.
Good morning, everyone. Great to be here, and thank you to Kim and Brittany for putting such an incredible event. I always like coming to these conferences because I learn a lot. What really strikes me in the cold storage industry is the complexity. It's the stuff that you deal with is just incredible. So it's really good to learn more. The good news is that what I'm talking about is actually quite simple. So you don't have to worry about fire anymore because it basically cannot happen. But I was worried about this. That they do happen, and how often do they happen? So in Germany, every year about 200 warehouses have a major fire event. They're not all refrigerated warehouses, obviously, and they're not all total losses, but they're certainly business disruption. And business disruption is one of the major business risks that people deal with, and fire and natural disasters are second in terms of causes of business disruption. So you don't you would want to minimize the impact and the occurrence of it. So to deal with it, most people think that regulations save them from business disruptions, but regulations are basically designed to save people and protect the environment. They're not designed to protect your stock or your business, your staff's jobs, your reputation, none of that. And most people, to comply with the regulation, install sprinklers. And sprinklers are great. They've been around for about 150 years. Same with the electric light bulb, and we're not using that anymore, but we're still using sprinklers quite heavily. And in certain circumstances, they do actually work. In the refrigerated industry, as you would have heard yesterday, Paul say quite strongly that they're really a bad idea. So the way sprinklers work is you need to have heat. So if you have heat, then you already have a fire. So you've got flames, you have smoke, and the smoke will cause about 10 times more damage to your stock than the water does. And even the water does a lot of damage. So basically, if you do have a fire in your store, the smoke will contaminate all of your stock. So you'll lose all your stock, and that needs to be all thrown out, which causes massive disruptions to the supply chain, and your customers will certainly not appreciate it. So this is what it looks like once you've had a fire. And what we've learned is that with the increased densities that you would have in refrigerated warehouses, especially automated ones, the fire, if you have a thermal event, and 30% of fires are caused by electrical fires. So you've got a small flame starting, and the sprinklers are basically overwhelmed. They can't deal with the fire load. The fire will spread vertically, but also horizontally. And you basically run out of water, and your building burns down. So good news is, it doesn't have to be, but to have a fire, you need to have three things. So you need heat, you need fuel, and you need oxygen. So with an electrical fire, you've got heat, so you can tick that one off. Whatever you store is a fuel, so because of it's very cold, it's very dry, it will burn really nicely. And you've got oxygen, and oxygen is in the air, 20.9% to be precise, so that's everywhere. So if you then take an oxytorch to maybe a polypropylene container, and you apply that to it, the ignition heat is big enough so you can have a self-sustaining fire. It really basically will spread. But what if you were to reduce the oxygen levels just slowly or and slightly, and at the same time increase the nitrogen level, which is already 78% in normal air. So you bring it up from 78 to maybe 85%, and you apply the same heat to your propylene storage box. It will burn because the oxytorch supplies its own oxygen, but once you take it away, the flame will just extinguish. It's physically impossible at that level to have a fire, which is really, really good news. So the next big question is it safe for people to go into those areas where you have reduced oxygen levels? And how is it affecting people? So basically at 15.4%, this is equivalent what you would have as a cabin pressurization inside a commercial airliner. So if you can sit on a plane, not gasping for air or ask for an oxygen mask, you should be okay at 15.4%. The German tallest mountain, Zugspitze, is just shy of 3,000 meters. Hundreds of thousands of people visit that every year because there's a nice cable car going up and down. And I couldn't find any statistics on how many people have issues going up. People may have slight symptoms of acute mountain sickness going up. But in a work environment, what we find is if you are reasonably fit and healthy, then you don't have any issues. Your heart rate might go up a little bit, your breathing rate goes up a little bit, but nothing to be concerned about, and there's certainly enough studies to say there's no long-term ill effects working in a hypoxic environment. In Europe, there's a standard around it, which is accepted in Australia as well, that specifies that if you have an hypoxic area with oxygen levels of 17 to 15%, so you can spend 4 hours in that area, and after that you need 30-minute break in a normal atmosphere. If you run a little bit lower, 13 to 15%, you can spend 2 hours in there, and then you need a half-an-hour break, which is pretty normal operation, especially if you're on a freezer and after 2 hours in minus 25, you're probably quite happy to have a little break outside. So that's what often warehouses nowadays, very modern ones, look like, especially on the right-hand side where you've got a lot of cranes, a lot of density, and your fire could start anywhere in there. And if you imagine you have a little fire in there, it will just spread because the density of that environment is very high. The temperature is low, humidity is low, it's dry, it will just spread. And when eventually the fire brigade walks up, they open the door, there's going to be so much smoke, they won't be seeing the wax from the door. And what happens is they just close the door and sprinkle it from the outside to cool and make sure that the fire doesn't spread. But your building is basically lost, which means a lot of business disruptions, and your competition is going to send you thank you notes because they're picking up your your customers left, right, and center. So that's basically all I wanted to share. I'm already out of time. I didn't notice, but if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm still around until lunchtime, so thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Oliver. I do have one question for you.
Okay, yes.
Some of our members are wondering how many hypoxic systems are in operation around the country, to use as sort of a test case for whether it's a good solution or not.
Yeah, so we've got definitely two reference projects in New Zealand. There's quite a few large sizes in Australia, but worldwide Wagner has been installing about 1,200 of those systems in 1,200 locations. And we've been running this for between 25 and 30 years, and there has not been one fire incident. So it definitely works. We've got a track record, and also incidences where people have anything more than a light headache going into those into those environments. There's no lost time injury or any safety concern. You've got to be smart about it. We do recommend follow what the standard says, sending people to a medical assessment. Most companies sort of learned that it's not really needed, and they do just self-assessments of people. If you're fit and healthy, and it's not like you climbing down a mountain like what Mike Alsop said yesterday, wearing oxygen masks up on the mountain, and it takes you a week to come down. You basically just walk through a door in normal air, and your recovering is almost instant. But most people, the vast majority of people, don't feel anything. There's no symptoms.
Thank you, Oliver.
All right, thanks you.
Before I invite our next speaker to the stage, I'd just like to say that the feedback survey will be opened on Slido for the next hour through to the end of morning tea. The survey will be available on an intermittent basis throughout the day because of the technical way that Slido works. So it'll be open for the next hour, then there'll be a period where it's not available, and then it'll be open again later in the day. So our next speaker is Marianne Kintzel. She's the Executive Officer of the Refrigerated Warehouse and Transport Association. For most of you, she needs no introduction. Please welcome Marianne.
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful again to be in New Zealand, where the people are warm, the weather is cool, and the tsunami warning is, it's simple. The plan is simple. It's run for the hills, but as Dion very kindly said yesterday, run for that particular hill. In Australia, the plan is just run faster than your mate and hope that the snake is slower than both of you. So RWTA, I wanted to tell you a little bit about us because we are kind of the New Zealand Cold Storage Association. We're just in Australia. The RWTA has been around for 83 years. I have not been around for 83 years. I've been around for about 7.5 years as the executive officer. And some of the things that we do, when I started, we had about 23 members. Then COVID hit and there was much consolidation. And when I say much consolidation, the fellow that was buying up for Emergent Cold / Lineage had a $4.3 billion expenses, which he certainly spent very well. So that amount of members dropped considerably. We're now up to closer to 40 cold storage members, which includes the warehouses and the refrigerated transport, which we're very pleased about. And we have about 110 members in total. We had about 20 functions this year. We have a golf day in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, South Australia and WA. We have networking events, and that is usually a breakfast event with a speaker. So we're there to educate and feed, of course. We had the Global Cold Chain Alliance Institute come in May, and that's an educational for up and coming leaders or emerging leaders of the cold chain, which was sensational. And there were some New Zealanders and a smattering of Canadians there as well, which was great. We also hold a tech tour. The tech tour is where Swisslog and Asken get together, and we take emerging leaders, so those under 35 years old, to tour sites that have automation. So it's educational, it's because the next generation of people that are coming through are the ones that are going to buy. So it's a massive opportunity for Swisslog and Asken, but also for those that are in attendance. The RWTA advocate in Canberra, or I advocate in Canberra. In recent times we've been speaking about a food security plan, which is in other countries. So for instance, the UK and Canada, they have a food security plan. We've been in front of Prime Minister and Cabinet, DAF and other departments to, I think after COVID, we've all understood that food has to get from A to B, and it's not that simple. The Global Cold Chain Alliance is based in the US, and when you become a member of the RWTA, we immediately, because the RWTA is a member, members of ours also become a member through us, which means that they have access to a lot of educational and 18 scientists and also emergency hotlines. So if you've got an emergency, you've got a lot of people that you can actually just 24/7 get onto and gather some information. So the RWTA is here to educate, communicate and provide connections, which, just by the way, New Zealand Cold Storage Association with this particular conference I think has excelled. Congratulations Kim and Britt yet again, and thank you so much for the warm welcome. Sirma, I think is the correct way to pronounce your name, I'm sorry, had touched on international volatility and trade. The cold chain in Australia is at the present time how to withstand economic, geopolitical, environmental and workplace challenges. Internationally, there's been a shift in the top 25 largest companies in the last year. Now that's been a very interesting change. So Lineage Logistics is the largest, no surprises I don't think in the room. Americold is second. The third is Newcold. Newcold is set to come to New Zealand, Auckland specific, in the middle of, I think it's June 2027. May I suggest that companies become aware of what Newcold does and is. It created an enormous amount of disruption within Australia back in 2017, 2018, and I encourage you all to future-proof your business and to ensure that you understand what all of the companies that are out there now do, so that you can be specific with what you offer and your customer service. Closer to home, Scott's RL, which was the largest cold chain transport/logistics company in Australia, in 2023 went under. Don Watson's went under in June. It was voluntary administration. They had 300 staff. They had been around for 77 years. They had 140 trucks. And they had 170 refrigerated trailers. This is a major loss to our industry, and they did it with the grace and humility that they ran their business with. And so when asked why, they said rising fuel costs, driver shortages and financial pressures. Again, please, future-proof your business, stay on top of things, because that was a real hit Both of those were a real hit to the Australian cold chain in the last couple of years. I wanted to touch on food insecurity and a hunger report. Half of low-income households in the last year have faced food insecurity. The prices have gone up and the cost of living also has gone up. The pay has, however, remained the same. A person is food insecure when they lack regular access to enough food, so that is the safe and nutritious food, for normal growth and an active, healthy life. The availability or lack of the resources to obtain food is part of that. We had last night, we saw the awards being given out. I just wanted to say what a fabulous job you all do in supporting, keeping sustainability up there, saving food, the confidence in food quality that you provide every day. And I wanted to thank you very much on behalf of Australia, on behalf of New Zealand, on behalf of everyone who lives and eats food. You do a great job and you are not underestimated. We love you. I wanted to highlight, I'm running out of time, I talk too much. I wanted to talk to you about the discretionary mutual fund which Australia and New Zealand is working on together. A discretionary mutual fund is to lower your insurance costs. The fund is established by a group of organisations to mutually protect against shared risks. It's owned and governed by its members. The profits are reinvested and returned to members. It's an alternative to insurance, and God knows all insurance costs around Australia and New Zealand are prohibitively high and, quite frankly, sometimes poorly suited to our sector. The benefits are member control over pricing, coverage and claims, potential cost savings over commercial insurances, and bespoke risk protection aligned with industry needs. It provides stability in hard insurance markets. We are offering a discretionary mutual fund and we've had a keen interest from New Zealanders. We're about, I'm going to say about 60% through it. It is not a fast offering that we're doing here, but if you are interested in becoming part of the DMF, please be in contact with me, the RWTA. Website, you'll get onto me there if we haven't spoken already, but it's an option to bring your insurance costs down. Lastly, the RWTA, we had our conference 2 weeks ago and we've just had our video made up, and for the last minute or so, Eddie, if you wouldn't mind taking that up, this was a little bit about ours, and we'd like to invite you all to attend next year, and I invite lots of Australians to attend this one as well.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure as Chairman of the RWTA to welcome you to the 83rd Annual Conference. Beautiful setting at the Langham.
Thank you everyone for listening today, and I encourage you all to network like there's no tomorrow. Please come to our function next year. I will be bringing as many Australians to you. Together we are better. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. If anybody does want to know anything more about the discretionary mutual fund, information has been circulated through your association, and I guess get in touch and we'll put you in touch with the right people. In a short time, well, just now we're going to break for morning tea and back here at 11. Before you go, one small item, the feedback survey only takes about a minute, so if you guys can get on there and fill that in, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you. See you back here at 11.